This last session is a little different. It's set up as a round table with the intent that we are not doing all the talking. To kick off, you've heard from me multiple times today. I will be sharing this session with Dr. Christina Tucker, who's been in the back of the room for the entire day helping to keep time. But I would like you all to give her a round of applause because she really championed this conference. It would not have happened without her. We have a thank you slide later for the full team, but in reality, Christina is the heart of what made this come together. So in this last session, we intend it to be interactive with a focus on making AI accessible and thinking about skills and education needs for our future workforce and for developing that future workforce. Over the course of today, we've seen a wide range of perspectives and applications from the very, very practical, ready-to-use tools all the way to emerging and happening research at this moment. Across all of those ecosystems, the need for an appropriately educated workforce is essential for any of those to be successful. So that's really where we want to start with the foundation for this session. One of the core goals at the university and within the Center for Digital Agriculture is education. So that's where we're going to wrap today. We can take this conversation, and we want it to be a conversation, any direction we want to go, as long as it stays, related to this space of livestock and technology. We said AI, but if we want to venture over into things that are not yet AI, that's okay too. I am happy for this to be completely audience-driven, but I have some prompting questions if nothing comes up right out of the gate. We have lots of perspectives. We'd like to leverage that to generate our thoughts and ideas on how education can and should be engaging in this space. We would like to build on some of the themes that we're already doing within the Center for Digital Ag and encourage ideas and conversation from the audience. So in a few minutes, we're going to open up to anyone in the audience that might want to ask questions. I have one central mic here, and actually I'm going to have one that I'll walk around with too as well. If you're not at a table with someone, please kind of at least turn around and chat with them during that time because I want you all to engage with one another as well. That's where a lot of the great ideas come from, and then I would like you to not be bashful about sharing them. We're going to start I'm going to invite Dr. Tucker to share a few highlights of some of the strategy in the Center for Digital Ag and how we have started to engage in this space of making AI accessible, and then we'll go from there, okay? Say yes. There we go. All right, Christy, that's you.
All right. So on top of my current title of Director of Operations, I was previously Director of Education for CDA. I'm still wearing that hat as well, but we're working on building this strategy and building the team that we need to help with this workforce in not only this livestock space, which we're talking about today, but just digital ag in general. So we're looking at the full spectrum of learners, starting with K through 12. We're working on an initiative for the last year, and hopefully by the end of this semester, we'll have public curriculum for this digital ag in a box. We have both a robot and a sensor kit that measures environmental factors and building curriculum with it with a target of middle school students, so inspiring the students to think about careers in digital ag. It's been, that age frame is considered a desert, and if we can inspire them then, if they know they want to be an engineer or a computer scientist, they take the proper classes in high school to come into an undergraduate career. We also have the Digital Ag 4-H Summer Academy that I mentioned during lunch. Again, trying to inspire students, and all of our approach is coming from twofold. One, we want to inspire the kids. I've heard several of you today say you're a farm kid. Angela and I are both farm kids from Kentucky, that went off to be agricultural engineers. So inspiring the farm kids that you don't have to stay on a farm and be a farmer, but you can do cool things, whether it's developing these technologies or using these technologies. But also, inspiring the kids that are fascinated in the robots and computer science and are from our more urban areas to show them that, we are doing really cool and advanced things in agriculture and there's career paths there. So that's kind of the theme of all of this, of who we want to target. We also have opportunities for community college students in our REU program, Research Experience for Undergrads. So we recruit from both community colleges and four-year institutions for that program. We have funding from NSF and USDA for that. We pay the students to come to campus for 10 weeks. They get free housing, meals, and travel, and they spend 10 weeks with our faculty affiliates working on research projects, and we give them professional development. We hope to build more in this community college space. You'll notice that box is kind of, the least of where we've hit right now. So that's one thing out of this conversation is maybe some ideas of where we can build more in that space. So in traditional four-year undergraduate programs, we have our REU. We also, the AI Foundry short course is open for upper level undergrads, and all of our REU students also complete that week-long course is kind of their boot camp to get them familiar with AI and being able to, we don't expect that they're going to come out of that class being programmers, but that they can have conversations. They can be this middleman talking, in this space. So just having fluency in the language and just understanding it. When we start thinking about, graduate degrees and stuff like that, again, the Foundry targets those graduate students that don't have, machine learning and programming experience. We, of course, also have, John mentioned this morning, we have all these grants in the CDA umbrella. All of those grants have RAs and GRAs. So we're training, students in research and skills by that method in digital agriculture. And then, of course, we have the ILMeng in digital ag as a online non-thesis degree option for people, but also thinking more, of what do we need for current working professionals. We have the online, that's the reason that the ILMeng is fully online, is so that it is accessible to the working people. They can do it part-time after work. Same with the certificates. But we know that there's more that we can do in all of these spaces, but this has just kind of been our starting point. So hopefully today's conversation can help us to think about where we want to go next as a center in this education space.
So I mentioned that we'll start with a seed question. Does anyone want to pose a seed question that the room can consider? All right, John.
I'll give you one. It would be something I'd make in my comments at the end, but one of the things that is really interesting is that we're trying to design solutions that help someone, and we have kind of a chicken and egg problem, I think. We have researchers that are experienced with a particular tool and capability, if it's robotics or computer vision or LLM, AI, and actually we think, we'd like to say that we have use-inspired understanding of something we're trying to do to use our tool to help solve a problem of a producer or customer or farmer. The challenge is that the technologies that we work on are an ingredient in the solution, but they're not the solution. They are best. Very rarely will there be just a single technology solves the problem. And what we've seen with digital technologies is you can integrate them in different ways. In precision agriculture, they started with, in electronics technologies at least, digital technology, they started with guidance. And if it wasn't for guidance, it would have all failed because it delivered value. That's a rare way of it happening, though. Today, we already have highly productive systems, and digital technologies, finding that solution is kind of the challenge. So my question is, we think we have use-inspired researchers, but what can we do to better understand the ecosystem around the problems that producers have, and this could be any space, but let's use precision livestock management, and to be better informed of their pain points and their production systems, and then at the same time to bring researchers together to not just try to sell their hammer. It's a complex problem. So anyhow, that's my starting point for you.
All right, I always hate interrupting good conversation. So I want to start by saying you all are doing a great job. Every table is still talking, so that's awesome. But I'm going to ask you to pause for just a moment because we want to share some of your ideas with the rest of the room, okay? I stopped and talked to one group, and we had some ideas we generated very quickly, but anybody want to start? Something interesting at your table in your discussion that would be good to share with the rest of the room?
We talked about several different things, but I think our table, at least the three individuals right here, we're employed by University of Illinois Extension, and so we're working with producer audiences, and so we have, I guess I would say I interjected that I've introduced some of these concepts to producers, and in my field, it's more beef cattle producers. And sometimes they're a little bit, they love seeing that the university's pushing the envelope and investing in these things. Just the nuance that exists in some of the production strategies, got to be careful about recreating the wheel, and that's the feedback that we get. I gave the example, if I'm a farmer or a cattle feeder and I'm driving the feed truck down the alley and I notice that animal is at the back of the pen and not at the feed bunk, we already know that animal is sick, right? We didn't need a picture of it to tell us that. But I think it's our job as extension specialists to convey that this is the first stage, and I think that's what you're really reiterating is when you introduce this, the capacity is not there yet, but we're at these beginning stages, and there's so much more that can come from this technology. And so we're trying to do that. I'll pass the mic if you want to build upon that or have any other components, because it was more of a back and forth conversation.
Yeah, I think you covered it. I think it struck me that it was actually, I'm really interested in getting the producer's perspective of their pain points and challenges. And I'm usually challenged that, I led an innovation function with a bunch of technologists when I was at John Deere, and one of the challenges was all of the technologists are very much wanting to do whatever their core capability is, but generally it wasn't always, and sometimes it could be part of the solution, but generally it wasn't a singular technology that provided the outcome. It was a combination of things together, including, we saw today, a lot of existing technology. And how do you transform is a big issue of it. So I think focusing on those pain points is what interests me. What you described is that actually we can hurt ourselves a little bit in the eyes of the producer if you have to really be clear to explain that, okay, this is the front end of something that's happening, and have a clear vision about what you're doing, because otherwise you'll just tell them something that they think that they already can do pretty well or can't see the end application. So it's a good point.
Very good. I think my follow-up in that is, what is the educational opportunity in that? Is it a support our extension folks a little better with longer vision so that you can help cast it? Or is there something else? Do you have any immediate thoughts on that?
I don't know if I have a great response to your question, because I'm not sure sometimes what producers really want. I think that's a challenge of just teasing out what they want or what they actually need. And so, I think as Extension, we do a good job a lot of times with building relationships with producers, but maybe we need to ask them those questions more so than, maybe that's something that we could team up on as more survey type options to get more information from those producers and have them answer those questions instead of us try to answer them for them. Yeah.
Great. All right. Let Christina pick somebody over there. Do you have one?
I got a table of all
All right, let's hear industry. What are you talking about on that side of the room? You can either respond to this conversation or you can summarize some of what you all were talking about. What have you been talking about over there? That's really the question.
I think we're still talking about kind of what you guys were talking about. How do we get better information from the growers, from the producers? And then John brought up the fact that Pork Board had created a, what do they call the council? The Retail Advisory Council. And my question then for him was, how did you get them to come to your group? Because, I mean, it's one thing to have producers, but how do you get those producers to actually show up and tell you something? And his advice was, we got to also educate them. So I don't know how we do that, but that's kind of you got to be able to give them something so that they want to show up, and then you can perhaps ask them questions. Kind of one of the conclusions I drew of what we ended up talking about.
Good. Anybody want to throw a hand up so I come to another table? All right, I'm going to pick one. There was a lot of good conversation, so we want to capture some of this. I know. Yeah, I see you, Dennis.
I'll try to keep it brief. One of my friends from church on Sunday yelled from the back, "Did you know that silent and listen use the same letters?" Which makes me think, when we want to listen to farmers, we truly have to listen, like what they're doing. But at the same time, we were talking about at this table, at least I mentioned anyway, the notion of smartphones, which we carry in our pocket. Had you asked me 15 years ago, what would I really like to have in my pocket, I would not have come up with that, because I didn't know it was possible until I saw it. So it is a two-way thing where we need to hear, what are your pain points, what would you like to do? But at the same time, we need to show them as tech developers, et cetera, here's something I'm working on. Is there a use for that as a solution to some problem that you have? So it's got to be education both ways. What is the problem? What's possible? Because I tell my first-year students often, like my approach in this class is to teach you things, but some of the things I teach you, you're going to forget those details. But you've at least been exposed to, oh, I can do that in that software. Until you know that you can do it, you don't even know to go to help to find out how to do it. So I think it certainly goes both ways. I'll stop there.
I think it's good wisdom. Thank you for sharing. All right. Anybody else on this question want to weigh in?
I just want to, and maybe this will kind of stir it a little bit. So several of our speakers, and I mentioned this, we're farm kids, so we know how to talk to farmers. Those of you that are more experienced in the room, how do we train our current students to go talk to these farmers? Like, what skills do we need to be giving them? Advice, or what is your advice to the students in this room that need to go talk to the customers to know their pain points to keep working on their master's and PhD project? So advice for communicating with farmers, and how do we, as current educators, teach these things better?
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm going to add to one piece of that, and then we're going to let you all discuss. We're going to let them discuss that at their tables, but I'm going to add one piece to that. So one of the things that's kind of starting to emerge in these programs that we have is very much the bringing together those that know the domain space and those that know the tech space. We've done it with our RU program, which is undergraduates, and with our AI Foundry, which is very entry-level people who have no experience with AI. Where else should we be doing that? And so it's very much that, how do we get people to talk to one another and speak the same language? So how do we get students to talk to producers? How do we also get students to talk to one another, or we as industry folks to be able to talk to one another? How can we do better in that education space? So let's share a little bit about how we cross-pollinate this technology space and the animal space.
Yes, we were sharing on two legs of academia. So we were talking in one regards of having to have the conversation with, let's say, a farmer, and having to be able to have a real life experience, be able to connect with them. And on the other side, when you're in academia and you're learning from professors, and you're learning about science, you're doing research, that you need to be able to communicate that research the other way as well. You need to be able to effectively communicate research, science, et cetera.
Yeah. Oh no, I was saying. I guess one of the suggestions I had was basically like incorporating some kind of like science communication component into the curriculum. Also to encouraging students to join the I-Corps program or like other different extramural funded programs. I was also thinking maybe like having micro grants where they can get money to actually perform some customer discovery studies, things like that.
You know, I've been an administrator for a long time, and I think challenges around these issues that we've known about for a while are real. And what tends to happen is the PI will say, this is great, and my grad student doesn't have time to do this because I got to get, you know, these accomplishments to get this grant renewed. And I don't know if we've ever been in a time in my life where the common person not understanding the value of science has had more of an impact on what we're doing in higher education. So if we don't take this seriously now, the science communication thing, I don't know when a better time to actually say we got to do something about this than now.
Thank you. We'll lean into our administration to make it happen. We'll start there and we'll send them up the chain. Yes, and I appreciate some of those tangible recommendations too. Like I also think I-Corps is a great program, and bringing that entrepreneurship brings some of those principles in a organized fashion instead of just telling students, you need to go learn about your industry. Like here's a program where you can go learn about your industry. I think some of those programs have some limitations. Like I-Corps, you have to have a faculty member. They're in the process, I think, of renovating that so that that's not a barrier. But yeah, like we can always keep nudging those programs to open up more, reach more students, broaden. Yeah, absolutely. Christina, pick somebody back there we haven't heard from. Hand it to Jonathan. He really wants to talk.
We had a conversation back here about equipping students with sales training or some form of it, and really about thoughtful storytelling, asking questions, listening to learn, and how those skill sets would be so useful in those conversations with quote-unquote producers or whoever you want them to learn from, and throughout life. And just really those are something that are often overlooked. And Dennis was telling us about a program that he does have, and he's interviewing students and the value that they get out of that and needing to repeat that more often. And so Jim and I quickly got into a conversation, a real quick one, and both put it on our lists about how we need to do the same thing with our MVS students. And so that kind of spun off from how do you have them go talk to producers, but how do you have them talk to anyone about learning something outside of the classroom? And then something that we didn't talk about that's kind of in my mind that went to that question is, who are producers anymore, and really defining that, and what are you trying to learn and from who? Because sending a student out into the world and saying, go learn from this producer or this company, we're quickly learning with our master's students that we have is that they're really struggling to pinpoint what they want to learn from who. And whether we like it or not, this new generation of student that's coming out of the COVID world is very different. And really being thrown into the fire like that, they're floundering. And so they need that extra input from us.
I will answer the question of the pork industry. There's maybe 60 to 65 decision makers, and it might not be that big. So when we're talking about talking to the producer, like the Rolodex folks isn't that big. They're probably all on my phone. And that's not because I'm super cool. It's just that's how small that industry is. And so those decision makers are in the C-suite, and they're out at the top of the food chain. And so having that discussion, yes, we're talking about what are we doing with technology in the barn, but the capital allocation occurs in the corner office. And so how does that bit of the food chain understand value? And what does it do to drive business performance? And if it's not doing that, that's where these things go to die, because it's a piece. And I'll get on a tangent for a minute for listening. Everybody's trying to build a camera to weigh pigs. And it's not the right problem. That's not the right problem to solve. or that's not the right way to solve the problem. We've misframed the problem because that actually isn't going to drive throughput out of the system. It's a dynamic about how does the space flow and everything else. And so it's a much more complicated problem than that, but we didn't listen very well to go solve the thing. And now we're spending all this time and talking to producers, and all producers are is real angry. I can tell you they're real angry about this idea because like it doesn't work, it's expensive. At a group out of Europe tell me, well, you just have to have the guy wipe the camera off every day. I'm like, dude, we just hope he goes to the barn every day, okay? Like, wiping the camera off's a lot. And so I think it's that listening piece that becomes important in figuring out who is making the decision and who are we talking to and how does that occur in a business sense and not a technology sense, and then unwind where the tech, as John said, what's the bundle that solves the business problem? Not so we don't have a technology problem, we have a business problem. We're here to make money. I mean, we don't get up and raise pigs every day because we like it. We raise pigs every day because we want to make money. And so what's that, or cows, or name whatever it is. Maybe ranchers are different. They're a little romantic and seem to tolerate losing money for years on years. That's a different conversation. We owned cows for a bit. It didn't fit with my mental personality, right? But I think that's understanding what that is and how does that go together and what's the problem we're solving, and that's the listening piece.
Yeah, that's a good wrap up, I think. And also, just to kind of add on to that, we'd rather the workers in the barn look at the animals than the cameras. So, yeah. All right, we're out of time. This was amazing. Thank you all for staying and contributing. This was a great conversation. What I hope it does is not that we solved everything today, but that it really gets your wheels spinning for how does this make a difference in my world, and how can I take that and pay it forward into my ecosystem where I am, right? So Center for Digital Agriculture is going to be here doing educational opportunities. If those somehow overlap with what you're working on, we'd love to chat with you. But we also want to ripple that impact out because we can't do everything. We have limited resources and limited time and limited people and all those things. And so we can do so much, and then we want to see you all making a difference too.